We are live here with Patricia Aguirre, and my name is Shanti. I am your host today. For those who are watching the replay, you can fast forward about 3 minutes or so. So we'll start the recording for the session then. In the meantime, we're going to have an informal little meet and greet casual chat with our presenter Patricia here. So we're letting all the folks in from the waiting room. Welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see some new faces and familiar faces here.
Yeah, as we're coming into waiting a few minutes, would you like to share with us in the chat if this is maybe someone's first session? This is actually the one before the last one, right, Shanti?
Yeah, it's a penultimate session.
Yeah, so we're practically wrapping up. Also, maybe if you want to share how many sessions that you've seen before.
Yeah, so any favorite frames you have from throughout the week, and anything that you are looking forward to that oh, I've got all these little nuggets. What are you looking forward to doing with those nuggets, right? In the coming days or weeks, we'd love to hear about that. And yeah, just any feelings you have as we come to an end.
Yeah, while you're writing those stuff up in the chat, I would like to say something, as this is close to the end of the week. It's very common when we immerse ourselves in a subject, we start seeing that subject all over the world, right outside. It's like they say, when you think of the yellow cars, you start seeing yellow cars. Mm-hmm. So this is also something that happens with the subject of trauma, as with any subject. So this would be I guess many countries have this habit, but in Italian culture, they have it's called the digestivo, right? So it's like something that you drink after your meal, and it helps the digestion process. So what I'm gonna say with this is that not everything is trauma, right? So sometimes I feel like I don't want to get out of bed and I want to skip gym. That's not trauma. If sometimes I eat a little bit more than I used to, or that I wish that I had, that's not necessarily trauma. Also, one day that you just go wild and scream at your partner and not be as nice as it should be, or not as polite as it should be, that's not necessarily trauma. Yeah, so that's our little digestivo shot, right? As we're coming to a close. So neither nor for us or for other people, right? Sometimes we see it, oh, that's trauma. And maybe we actually even want to tell people that their behaviors may be rooted in trauma. So be nice to yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and also people around. Brianna is sharing, I have seen 4 live and 3, 1 twice replay, and I cannot wait to process all of it and piece it together. Thank you, Brianna. Yeah,
it's ready to drink her digestivo.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and start the recording, and we'll get the session started. Okay, everyone? Hello, welcome, everyone. Welcome to day 6. The final day in our talk series on trauma's everyday impact. This session's presenter is Patricia Aguirre, known to us as Patty for short, and she will be speaking about interrupting the vicious cycle of trauma so as not to pass it on. My name is Shanti, and I'm here to serve up some hospitality and tech. So if you have any support needs with using Zoom, don't hesitate to reach out to me via private message. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. First things first, I just want to give a special thanks to those who have the All Access Pass and are here live for contributing to our sustainability and giving us the joy of having humans to interact with. Please turn on your cameras if possible, no matter what you're doing, as it provides useful feedback for the presenters. Second, if you're watching a replay, you can purchase an All Access Pass for $19 to get all the recordings, and the registration link is in the chat. I will put all the links in again for you right now. And third, for those who have experienced benefits from this week's summit and are interested to learn more about the topics that we have covered, we offer the Trauma is Your Superpower course, where Patricia and many of the other speakers that you have seen throughout this talk series will be your teachers. There's various available packages to fit your needs, whether you're an ordinary person like me who's hoping to apply this to your own daily life and make some changes to your routine, or a coach, facilitator, therapist who's hoping to apply this to the work that you do with your clients. There are also tutor-led group sessions to help you integrate the knowledge and skills in community, which I find is the best way to learn. Embodiment Unlimited has intentionally made this resource cheaper than its market value because we want to make this affordable and accessible for as wide an audience as feasible. I will give you a little tour of the site when we wrap up this session along with the trailer for the course, but if you're curious now, you can check out the link in the chat for more details. And finally, those who have been coming regularly this week have heard me say this over and over again, but it bears repeating because it is so very important. You always want to do a self-safety check-in before attending one of these sessions or watching the replay. So one question to ask yourself is, are you resourced right now? If you aren't well enough to drive a car or anything that requires a lot of coordination, like operating heavy machinery, then maybe this is a signal that you shouldn't be watching right now. And a wiser choice may be to instead go do an act of self-care, whatever feels good for you right now, that will be kinder for yourself. And another good question to ask yourself is, are you better served by one-to-one therapy? This platform is for education and not therapy. It's not designed for people who are currently in the worst of their trauma. Many of our teachers have been there, including myself, and so no judgment at all, but you will need to be robust for these sessions. So exercise some prudence on whether this is the right time in your journey for engaging with in-depth discussion about trauma without the guidance of a clinical professional. It's okay to need the help of a clinical professional. That's what they're there for. And no matter who you are and where you're at with your trauma, definitely don't binge. As you see in the chat, I have put the link for those with the All Access Pass to the Summit replay, so you don't need to do that. And if you tense up, get agitated, or space out, that's an indicator to breathe and make a shift. You can always watch later. We recommend gentle movement, good company with people or pets that you trust, and immersion in nature, both during and after the session, to help resource yourself. So having said all that, I'd like to introduce this session. We have my talented friend Patricia Aguirre with us for one final time to discuss how we can interrupt the vicious cycle of trauma so as not to pass it on. A little background on Patricia. She is a specialist in developmental trauma who integrates her knowledge and experience of 20 plus years on Eastern philosophies, applying trauma-sensitive methods to family constellations and attachment-based approaches. In a nutshell, Patricia is who young yogis want to be when they grow up. Take it away, Patricia. The podium is yours.
Thank you. I still laugh at that introduction. I'm going to miss it. If this is the first time that you hear me, I did not write that. That was hallmark. Okay, so I'm very happy to be with you as this is our one. There's more, one after mine, still one more, but it already feels like a closing. Shanti and I were discussing this. So be kind to yourselves. That's all of one of the things that I want to say. I just mentioned before, I saw a lot of people were joining after we were discussing this. And it's also important to take a breath and have our minds recognize, our cognitive part of the brain say, this is over So I finished this intensive week of trauma education so that our brain is also easing out of trying to notice all of our trauma patterns. Yeah, as I said at the beginning, not all of our patterns are trauma related. Not all of our dynamics are trauma related. So let's allow a small ease into the body, or just a feel of softening in the body as we prepare our minds to say, I'm closing in on this, particularly those of you guys who have been live. I also love the live part of these events and these sessions. It does add a beautiful element that it's actually a lot of work to do, a lot of inside work. And we keep saying, should we still do these events, and should we still do them this big? And we love to keep this element of live interactions still out there. So thank you everyone for joining. It definitely encourages us to keep this part of our courses alive. So thank you for showing up and for your comments. Feedback nourishes us a lot, and the staff. So thank you for showing up. With that said, the idea of placing this session, How Not to Pass on Trauma, at the beginning was in a way softening as well, and easing into an inspiration, right? So like you've heard from the introductions that many of you heard maybe a little too many times this week, I work with family constellations. It's one of the methods that I most use and that I have a lot of faith in, because I don't want it to sound like esoteric. I mean, faith in the way that I have seen it work. I have seen the evolution of people who use the tool throughout the years, and I have seen how useful it is. So I could speak for hours because I've done it, right? Like weekend workshops, fully submerging ourselves into family constellations and all of those theories, systemic theory, that it's what studies how not just trauma, but how things trickle down through generations. There is a lot of ways to talk about these things. And actually, one of the things that I am proud to say that I have made the time and the effort and the personal mission of shifting a little bit of how this theory of systems is usually delivered from a fear perspective. And even when the intention might not be of fear, I could show you a lot of examples of how untreated trauma in families actually grows throughout the generations until someone actually addresses it. So what can come as an event in generation one, in the second generation might show up as a behavior or a personality pattern or something like that. And in the third generation, there's a physical manifestation of that same pattern. We could speak of this for ages. And I just want to briefly mention this little example to, mention that these things do trickle down, that these things sometimes stay within the same range. They don't grow as much, but in some cases they do grow up. They do grow in I don't want to say severity, but in visibility and the way that it impacts our lives. But I just mentioned this briefly at the beginning, so as to wrap our minds around the fact that this is happening, right? But as it's a really short time that we have right now with this subject, and also as we're nearing the end of the week, I would love to focus on the uplifting visions of this. One of the things that is very common after people binge on family constellations theories, as we have binged on trauma this week, is realizing, oh my God, like, you mean that if there was this type of events in my family, then this is going to happen, right? Like, if a very common one is if a child was pulled into a triangle or paternalized in more psychotherapy language, what does that mean? That sometimes the relationship between both parents is not solid enough, and the child, usually the first one or the first of the gender, gets pulled into their dynamic and helps as like there's a phrase, Shanti, you might want to help me with this, like the cushion. We call it something like, so it's like the child who will serve to be the ear for the mother, and the buffer child, confidant, the support, the emotional support child. So the effect of this under the vision of family constellations is that it's really hard to find a partner later on for that child. We usually say because that child is already taken, they serve the role of an equal to their partners, to their parents, which makes them systemically at the same level of their parents. So that makes them as if they were a partner to their parents. Sorry for the tongue twister. So that's one of the effects that we see. And when I start pointing out all of these dynamics and their causes, sometimes people go like, oh, well, this happened in my family. Do I have to do a constellation? This happened in my family as well. Should I be protecting my children? This happened in my family. And we freak out when we start looking into the inventory of what happened. Thank you, Eliana, for the question. I will go into what a constellation is. But it's a picture of, or like a mapping of where our family is actually located or placed, not from a natural family tree perspective, but how the dynamics play out. And what we look for in a family constellation are the disorders. So the theory of family constellations is that there is supposed to be a certain order within a family system. And when that order is not respected, there are obviously several things with regards to order. When one of those things are broken, then that disorder will manifest as a difficulty in that person, one of the members of that family's life. So in that case, as I mentioned in the example, the order of parents are like the big ones and are the partners, and then children are one level below the parents and they're only their children. There is a misplacement and the order is disrupted. Therefore, the child will see themselves with a difficulty to access a certain area of life. In this case, like I mentioned, is the very usual disturbance is partnership. So, what I was saying is usually when people start hearing these stories, they're like, this happened to me, this happened to my brother, this happened to my mother. For example, there's a very important movement in family constellations that we watch out for, which is when children are separated from their birth parents, actually mainly from the mother, but it could affect also the separation from the father at a very early age. And very early age, I would do an average of before the age of 5. So people go like, oh, that happened in my family as well. Should I have to do the work on myself? Should I do something in order to stop this? And when we binge into all of these things that could be causing the disturbances in our present life, there is sometimes the idea of looking back and wanting to clean it all up, right? Like when, I don't know if you've had, maybe I'm the only crazy one, but it's sometimes I remember when, fortunately, I just realized this doesn't happen to me as much anymore. But sometimes I was like, this is like, I would look around the kitchen or the living room or whatever, and I was like, everything is like out of place. It's also dirty. And I would go into like freak cleaning mode. We sometimes want to do that with our family history. And what I want to say today about that is that our mission is not, our job is not to clean up all of the histories in our family. That's not necessary, and that's not our job. When is it that we actually have to go back and work in something like that? Is when I'm looking forward into my life and there is an aspect of my life that I cannot see myself having clear access towards. I usually use the example of the gym that I have used previously today, but I will use it again. So I know that I have to go. And with my own resources, like my will, my discipline, my whatever, just my own will, I'm not able to go to that goal that I have. So, for example, it could also be I want to be in a stable partnership, and I keep running into the same pattern of people. I feel like that I always choose this type of men or women or a partner. In that case, that's when I would suggest, then we look back, but not just for the sake of the actual cleaning process. I might make things sense in this point that I want to make clear. Our job is to be facing our life, to be looking forward. And then if something doesn't work out from there, then I will start and see what I need to pick out from the things that are in the background, and just fix this one thing that I need and go forward again. Why am I saying this? It's not just like, oh, it's super uplifting to set our minds towards, like, literally, it would be like towards the light, right? When I see a movement in this type of work, of systemic work, of family systemic work, sometimes it is important to, yes, like say, honor the pain that the grandmother felt when she lost several of her children, right? Because several generations ago, at least in Mexico, but I do know in many other parts of the world as well, a lot of children were miscarried, or they died right after birth, because of course medical services were not what they are right now. So what we see a lot is that a lot of women were stuck in that pain and did not process it. One, because they were not allowed to, because their life, I mean, they had like 12 children, so they couldn't afford themselves to do a full grieving process. And that, of course, creates a resonance throughout the rest of the generations. So sometimes when we are doing this type of work, yes, we look into that grandmother and we grieve with her and we leave her pain with her and we help her, or whatever the stuff we need to do at that moment. But sometimes just the fact that us as descendants are actually claiming our lives, our right to be, our feeling into the presence of what we are right now, that's enough to shift those things that are lingering in the background and propel us forward. Just literally, there's this beautiful part of working with family constellations where we use a phrase that says, I choose life. I choose life. I choose to stay. I choose to be here. I choose to stay here. This is particularly helpful for children. So when children know that there are, or let me rephrase that. Many parents might wonder, what can I do to stop passing this trauma on to my children? And the very easy answer would be, do your own work and do your trauma healing. And of course, I definitely encourage that. I mean, that's something that I actually do. Even I do myself. I do it for other people as well, like with other people. But there's also one thing that we see in this space of the family constellation or any type of systemic therapy. One thing that we see is that when the child hears from their parent, yes, there are stuff that's not solved yet, but I'm willing to be here. Yes, there are things that are setting me back, but I'm willing to do as much as I can within a reasonable effort to be here for you, to be in life. Actually, to be in life. And when I am in this strength of being in life, then there's something that resonates for you as well. As a child, right? As a child of this parent who's assuming, I've got it. Even when I don't know how I'm going to do it tomorrow, but for now, I'm willing to face my stuff. That itself is as powerful, as impactful as doing the actual work, or sometimes even more. Yeah. I want to take a second and check on everyone, as these are very powerful things. So I want to ask you, how is this landing for you when you hear these phrases? You can think of how would it feel if you say this towards your children, if you have any. Like, this is in the background of our families. There were these heavy stuff. There have been difficult situations, maybe famine, maybe war, but we're here. Let's make the best of what we can with what we have here. And to actually resonate that from the depths of your body, how would it feel like to say it to your child? And you don't have to say it out loud. This is the magic of this type of work, and the beauty of this type of work. Children resonate. I don't do this type of work with children. It's always the parent who does the work in this type of situations. There's lots of systemic reasons for that. Yeah, and what I see is that children actually feel it, and they start, let's say they have a difficulty in school, and they start moving on their own themselves without the parent sharing any of this, of course, at all, nor having to say anything, right? I usually tell people it's more important that you actually feel it and believe it and actually start living that than saying any word at all to your children. Now, if you want to take it up a notch and get a sense of it, imagine what it would feel like if your parent, and of course, if there was a deep traumatic situation, you don't have to visualize any of your parents at all. So be gentle and be sure that you do something that's safe for you right now. But imagine what it would feel like if you could feel through the gaze of one of your parents, even if they are not longer with us. If at some point in your life, you could have seen them turn and gaze and say, I've got it. I'm good. I am okay. Go towards your life. How would that impact you? What would that change? Yeah. I'd be free. I love that phrase. Yes, yes. Because what we see in this type of work is that whenever there is a trauma that's not resolved, it's something that's sort of like whispered, where we have like a family meeting. This is like a very simple way to explain this. And it's like, oh, that happened. How do we fix it? And the more people face that without fixing it, the more people are pulled into to solve it. It's the same as, imagine like a corporate meeting, and like the table broke and one person wouldn't fix it, and somebody's passing by and they'll go like, oh, how can they fix it? Oh, somebody knows a little bit about this. And then they start pulling people in until it's actually solved. So that's sort of like the effect of trauma. So as I said, I explained it in more technical words, but imagine in that situation, in that office, that corporate office, there's two ways. One can actually solve the fixing of the table. And it's like, okay, everybody do your thing. Everybody is free to go and do their jobs and live their day, because there's a solution. But there also could be that someone comes in, sees it, and they're like, I've got it. I've got this. You guys are free to go. I'll take care of this. I can handle it. Even if I don't know how to do it, but I can Google it. This is the attitude of the parent, right? I've got it. I'll see what I can do. I trust in the strength of the life that I have, that I'll try my best. And my best is enough to pull that energy forward and to free the children, to free the newer generations. How is this landing for you? The time, I think this is the session that I've seen the shortest. Thank you, Liana. Thank you. Yeah. And I could talk about this forever. Yes. So I will wrap this up. I will keep on talking about what I just said before I give this back to Shanti. And I will say it in different words. I'm not using systemic stuff or family stuff. But it's just about trying not to solve necessarily, but the attitude of being present, of feeling fully present. If you'd ask me, and this is of course my very personal, doesn't have to be, nobody has to agree with me at all, but one of the things that I find the most pleasure in doing my own trauma work, yes, it is solving one or two things and being more free to do this or this other thing, but it's the feeling, the availability of being present, the availability to be here, whatever it is that I have to face, whether it's the same thing of repeating something that it's still there, you know, like the noisy neighbor or whatever thing that you have to do with daily life, but having more felt strength inside to say, I can laugh about this, I can be okay with this, or I can face it and try to solve it, but it doesn't take so much of my presence away. And to me, this is the largest gift of trauma work, the availability of that energy to use it to be present and to feel present. Yeah, I would definitely invite everyone to breathe, because this was a little bit, this came with some strength, which means that it's probably resonating in there. Taking a breath, noticing how your body or how your gaze wants to shift in this moment. It doesn't have to be, if I gave you like this nice speech about being present and about facing life as it is, it doesn't mean that you will come out of this room, if we were in a room right now, like with this gladiator music, you know, like all happy and a fighter. But if it's like, hey, actually, yeah, I gotta work in this, that's perfectly fine, right? Whatever your insight is, that's the strength of being authentic to what's happening right now and taking care of that. That's precisely the attitude that I meant. Yeah. Thank you, Fiona. Wonderful. Okay. So I will repeat that just before we log off today. As I mentioned at the beginning, be gentle, be easy with yourselves as we are closing in to the week. I mentioned that, you know, how people say, if you think of a yellow car, you will see yellow cars. So be mindful that maybe for the next few days, you will start seeing a lot of, oh, this might be a trauma pattern. This might be coming from trauma. With this, maybe, and your mind might be trying to analyze these sort of things. So again, be gentle. Not everything is trauma. And even with some certain traumas, with respect to those who are struggling right now, but we can take steps. We can take the next step, even when we have stuff to work through still. And I would encourage you to feel a connection to all of us who walk with those things still, who might solve some stuff, even though sometimes we don't know how to solve it, even if some things are already more or less solved, but it's okay to walk. It's okay to go forward, even with. Yeah. I thank you all for your presence, for your intention, for your openness this week, for your availability to us as a community, for each and every one of you guys here next to each other. I'm super happy for what we created. And what I mean we created, I mean all of you here, all of you watching the recordings, also you're part of this club, of this party. So thank you for being here. Hope you keep enjoying. There will be replays throughout the weekend. Happy to share with you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shanti.
Thank you, Patricia, for all that wisdom that you just shared with us. That was beautiful. I think the last words that Patricia spoke just sort of continue to ring through to me, which is that it's okay to walk with the trauma that you're working with as you continue to do it, and it is like a journey. There's like baby steps, and there's a few steps forward and a few steps back. Hold that with gentleness, and if you can, sort of take that question with you of what might be some resources, both internal and external to you, that you might be able to turn to help you be more present, as Patricia was talking about. So that might be something for you to sort of let percolate or journal about after this session is over. And feel free to, right now, I'm going to go do a little bit of a wrap up for us. Feel free to, you don't have to sit in front of the screen and like ramrod straight. You feel free to get up and move around and sort of shake a little bit of that off. It was a bit of a heavy session. So a couple announcements. First, we have a giveaway. So for those with the All Access Pass, you can post your favorite session in the Trauma Facebook group and tag Mark and Patricia to have a chance to win a set of the recordings this week. The winner will be chosen and announced in the group on Wednesday, and each session post tagging Mark and Patricia with a good reason to watch counts as an entry. For those of whom this was your cup of tea, let me give you a quick tour and a trailer of the website that we have for the course that you can take to kind of go deeper into this, which is Trauma is Your Superpower. So the link is right here. And I'm just going to do a quick screen share here so that you can watch a little trailer of the video. So here is our, let me just kind of play this. Oh.
I think we're not getting sound, Shanti.
Oh, are we not getting sound?
Yeah, no.
Okay, hold on one moment. I can fix that. Thank you. Thank you for alerting me. Okay, let's try that now.
When it comes to healing trauma.
What really works for me when it comes to dealing with my own stuff?
I thought there'd be an obvious answer. I thought it would be like, okay, if you have this infection, you take antibiotics.
But it's about the energy that is still present from our past, in our nervous system, in our bodies right now.
If trauma is bio, psycho, social, relational, spiritual, societal, your healing will probably involve those things. The main thing is actually practice rather than theory. You can't sort of theory your way out of it.
Because trauma is not something that goes away.
Everybody has to deal with their trauma in their own unique way.
An online course like this, it's not at all about repairing you. Quite the opposite. Can you deal with your past that it enriches your life today?
What is this idea of superpowers? We can think of trauma patterns as strategies for establishing safety.
Trauma is an event that changes you fundamentally.
Patterns are created to cope with this.
But it doesn't have to be negative all the time.
The superpower is where you keep the adaptation, but you lose the problems associated with it.
this journey, all of these chapters, trauma is a superpower. This course is about
tools to create a richer life for yourself.
Going beyond surviving trauma and actually thriving.
in order to get closer to what I really want in life. Can I meet my past in this powerful presence?
People do not have to suffer as much as they are. You do not have to.
I invite you to go into this journey. Let me be your fellow traveler with all of us together.
I think this will help.
Okay, so if that piqued your interest,
That's lovely,
feel free to-
Shanti. That's the first time that I've seen it. I loved it.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, and you can see it's all of the same speakers and presenters that have been teaching all the talks throughout this week. So if that was your cup of tea, I think you'll really enjoy the course. Take a look at the link that I put in the chat to learn more about the packages available to you. And the last thing that I just want to put in, I'm going to put again the link for the replays into the chat for those with the All Access Pass. And I'm also going to put the email for our support team. Agata is manning the inbox for that. And if you need any assistance with the course or with the replays or anything at all, do feel free to reach out to us.
Send your feedback and your comments. We love to hear from you.
Yes, we would love to hear feedback, comments, anything that you have. So keep on coming. And I just want to also just close with the statement that it's also okay if this was not your cup of tea. For those for whom this, like the embodiment and trauma, just didn't seem to work with you, there are other options out there. Different things work for different people. There other methods include TRE, EMDR, somatic experiencing. So something that Embodiment Unlimited really wants you to know is that you don't have to give up hope. You can explore different things and try different things to work with your trauma. So that's it for now. Patricia, thank you so much. We've just been so lucky to have you all week sharing your wisdom with us. Can't wait to see more from you. And thanks again to this community for all that you contribute to making this happen and for helping us all to learn about trauma together.
Thank you too, Shanti, for always being super nice, super smiley, supportive. Thank you, everyone, again.
Right back.
Bye-bye.
Much love. Take care.
Bye.